call me Roy.
Hi, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. Hi, today I'd like to discuss two books with you. Both of them I read 10 plus years ago. One of them is a novel, and the other one is a work of children's literature. I read that one back when my daughter was considerably younger than she is now. Now she's in college. But back then, I would read books to her every night. I started off with, shorter books that could read the whole thing in one sitting, and then moved on to chapter books that would take several days, several weeks to get through. This book falls into that category. But I'm going to start off with the novel written for adults. It's Loving Day by Matt Johnson. Matt Johnson has a very funny, as in comical, way of looking at the world. Perhaps because he grew up with a fair number of people looking at him funny, as in odd. Is he black? Is he white? The box you decide to put a person into upon introduction, the label you instantly apply to their existence, shapes the dynamics of the relationship you will have with them. If you're not sure of which box to go with, which label to use, then what is there to guide your first impression? If you're not sure what someone else is, how do you go about being yourself around them? We live in an identity-obsessed culture. Who are you? What are you? Who am I? We are comforted when we can tell at a glance whether someone is a star-bellied sneetch or a starless sneetch. But when the truth about someone cannot be discerned by a glance at them, then either they need to forcefully declare what they identify as being, or else we'll do it for them. Loving Day is filled with indelible characters, a lineup of humorous situations, an entertaining blend of reality and unreality, a considerable amount of wry, insightful prose, great compassion, and a handful of ghost. I could have gone deeper into details of the plot here, but this book is less about the particular story being told and more about the issues being examined. It is about figuring out that regardless of how clearly our stars can be recognized, thank you to Dr. Seuss for helping me out with this review, it doesn't change the fact that we're all just people put here to find other people to love. Preferably people who will love us in return for whatever the hell we are. So I recommend Loving Day by Matt Johnson, particularly if you are interested in books about racial identity, being biracial, and if you like books that have a humorous take on issues such as this rather than being, dead serious about them. They are serious matters, but that doesn't mean they can't be laughed at. And Matt Johnson has a very funny way with words. He used to be on Twitter back in the early days, and I used to get a kick out of his commentary and observations there. I'm not sure if he's on it anymore because I haven't seen him in a minute. So if you want to be amused by him, you'll have to check out his books, and perhaps you will like to start out with Loving Day. The second book I'd like to talk to you about in this video is The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom. It's part of a series that's called The League of Princes. I'm not sure how many of them there are, 2 or 3, I believe. I did read the subsequent books, or at least one subsequent book in the series back in the day. I recall that the first one was definitely the strongest, and that is the one I am going to tell you a thing or two about. And if you decide to give it a read for yourself based on what I have to say, you might want to then move on to the other books in the series. But as I said, I feel that the first one was the best. I love the premise of it. It's true that most of the classic fairy tales are princess-centric. The charming prince is simply the guy who shows up and saves the day. And typically he falls in love with her at first sight, and they get married. The rescuer may need to do something daring, like conquering a witch or a dragon, or something relatively uncomplicated, like ending her magical coma with a kiss. The women in these stories are slighted, even though they get to be the stars and have the stories named after them, because they are depicted as helpless. The men are also slighted, in my opinion, because even though they demonstrate heroism, the rescued damsels in distress still get lead billing. The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom by Christopher Healy addresses both of these matters. This story focuses on the guys who show up to save the day, but instead of being portrayed as superheroes, we are presented with flawed men who must overcome their fears and ineptitude and lack of expertise. The princesses, although they vacate center stage and being the title characters, are far braver and more capable of taking heroic matters into their own hands than the versions of them that we've grown accustomed to. I applaud the objectives of this book, along with the sense of humor displayed throughout. My main complaint is that I found it to be a bit overlong. It would have been stronger had it been a little tighter, in my opinion. Overall, though, I enjoyed reading it aloud to my daughter, and she was quite fond of it as well. She also loved the scattering of charming illustrations by Tod Harris, and would not have minded more of them spread throughout the book. So if you are a parent of a child under the age of, 10 or so, give or take, I would highly recommend this book, particularly for kids who love to read stories about fairy tales, characters, your Cinderellas, your Snow Whites, your Rapunzels, and on. But, different view of them than you'll find, in Disney movies or in other books that you'll find about these characters. They definitely get some amusing twists created by Christopher Healy. He does a solid job of reinventing the genre. So that's all I have to say about this one. Until the next time, happy reading.